Hello everybody, this is Alau here. Today I would like to teach you guys how to master paper 2 in the HKEAA DSE history exam. Like its predecessor, this paper focuses on the depth of knowledge of students in a particular area of study, and also broadness when it comes to comparisons in a time frame. To begin with, I would like to explain the general framework of history essays. Before we begin, please ask yourselves a question. What does HKEAA want? Keep this question in mind and you will definitely ace the exam, or any other exam. Each question type has its own distinctive features and ways for students to deal with. HKEAA does not ask for a historian to answer the questions, to shove the depth of information into the paper. To be honest, teachers are paid to be in the marking centers in their after hours to mark your papers. A concise answer would definitely trump a lengthy essay. Teachers don't give up about how well you grasp the examples, but whether your essay is clear in structure and easy to read, in a way that they can make more money in limited time. So what does it mean by concise structure? To be honest, there is no single trick to all the question types. You must memorize the typical structures to all of the question types, and it took me some time. This video will show you the most basic question types you will come across in your DSE exams. Firstly, trace and explain. Trace and explain is definitely the easiest question type in the whole syllabus. Why? Because it is just straightforward. All you have to do is complete two tasks, trace and explain. And this requires no deduction and prior planning as long as you have a good grasp of the events that happen within the question's time frame. The basic structure is altering between trace and explain. You must divide the time frame to different periods, also called periodization, with respect to the distinctive features. For example, for the economic development of Hong Kong, the periods are in 1900s to the 2000s, entry pot trade from 1900s to 1948, industrial base from 1949 to 1977, and diversified economy 1978 to 2000s. When you're attempting this question, bear in mind that you have to alternate between trace and explain. For example, you must first trace the events that illustrates the characteristics of one period. Then you must explain why the characteristics are formed in that period. It is normal for students to mix up trace and explain as they may look similar and the boundary between the two elements is usually unclear. Therefore, a clear distinction between trace and explain elements is the key to ace this question type. Secondly, turning point. To define turning points, they are fundamental changes that took place in history after a given point in time. The key to this question is definitely clarity in changes. The past, the present, and the future are the three elements that we need to tackle. To show that a year or event is a turning point, you will need to show three things. Firstly, there were changes. Secondly, it has to be a fundamental change in nature and ushered a new era. Finally, such changes took place after the point of time set by you, or the question. To properly answer this question, you would have to compare the developments before and after the turning point, identify the fundamental change that had taken place, and elaborate on how the turning point has caused such changes. The past, the present, and the future, set in the time of the turning point, must be answered in depth and proportionally. Thirdly, to what extent? To answer this type of question, you would have to answer the points supporting and not supporting the statement. Evidently, the points which are in favor of your viewpoint must exceed the ones that are not in favor of it. Rebuttals are needed to show high-order thinking. And it is also an easy question type. Students might have to pay closer attention to the keywords in the question and answer them in detail. The length of the essay doesn't really matter as long as your arguments revolve around the question words. Fourthly, relative importance. It means examining the interrelationship of certain factors and weigh their importance by making comparisons. Relative importance is slightly harder than to what extent, as it requires you to identify different factors that contribute to an event and compare them in terms of their influence. You might have to introduce your own factors to compare. Clear standards of comparison must be used. I would firstly introduce each of the factors in terms of their own respective influence in a period. Then, I would compare them one by one. For instance, if A is the most important factor, I would compare A and B in one paragraph, and then compare A and C in the other paragraph, both showing that A is more important. Some clear standards include causal relationship, extent of impact, root cause, and time span. The key is to elaborate on the comparisons as the question requires explanation of the relative importance of events. So, the general rule to a good essay is to be concise and precise. And I admit that I'm not a believer of this rule, as I have too much to write. But if you just started studying history and you want to grasp the attention of the marker of your paper, you must follow the general rule and provide concrete examples to support your answer. Thank you.